Hi, I'm Alix Browne, host of today's Real Talk. This series brings together industry experts and TRR collaborators. Today, we are so lucky to have two industry rock stars, TRR founder Julie Wainwright and fashion designer Diane von Furstenberg. They are, as DVF likes to say, two women in charge. I would like to just dive right in and ask you both a question to both of you. What does this idea of disruption mean to you, and why is fashion a good platform for influencing wider cultural change?
You start.
Oh, wow. I mean, when I think of disruption, I don't think of, there is a technology, sort of a bro culture where you have to disrupt for the sake of disruption. Mm-hmm. The truth is we do need to all re-envision our world. And in that, older industries may or may not be applicable. So that's how I think of disruption, creating a new type of world that actually serves the climate, serves people, and ultimately serves, the people as a whole and the individual. And, that is how I view it. Fashion is, in its broadest sense, everyone wears clothes. So when you think about what fashion can do, it's been changing for a long time, but right now it's inclusive. Mm-hmm. And certainly we see that at TheRealReal. We have a very diverse team. To me, I think fashion has a huge imprint on how actually everyone accepts everyone else. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing now is really exciting.
What about when you started DVF 50 years ago?
For me, it's all about the woman. And it's all about the woman first. When I first started, when I was growing up, I did not know what I wanted to do, but I knew the kind of woman I wanted to be. I wanted to be a woman in charge. How I would get there, what was my door, I had no idea. Fashion was interesting to me because fashion is the reflection of our time, whatever time, right? And fashion is not just clothes, it's what you eat, what you surround yourself with, what you read, movies you see. Fashion is everything. I did become the woman I wanted to be at age 27, 28, because of this little dress. And this little dress that didn't look like much, but somehow that dress gives you an amazing body language. And for women's beauty, there are three things that matters: eye contact, smile, and body language. And this dress had a body language that somehow the women who wore it didn't know they had and got a lot of compliments. I mean, it was one of those things. So it's not that I made the dress, it's really the dress made me. But in terms of disruption, I would call it provocative. I've always liked to be provocative because provocative allows me to be more authentic. So for me, somehow disruption, provocative, is about allowing you to be you.
I think authenticity is a value both of you hold in spades. Certainly the RealReal is built on this idea of authenticity.
RealReal.
Exactly. And Julie, I wanted to just go back to what you were talking about building something. So 10 years in with the RealReal, let's talk about how far you've come from that sort of aha moment or the day you celebrated where you brought in your first revenue.
I mean, there's a lot of really fun memories. We only had enough to run 30 items per sale, and we could only run a sale every other day. And because we didn't want to count how many items by brand we had a rack that we had, okay, we've got a rack of this, we've got a rack of that, we can run a sale. And everything sold out so quickly, there was no doubt in my mind it was going to be a big success. I remember the first day we racked up $67,000 worth of sales. And I thought, wow. And then I thought we have to get more product in. But the interesting thing about that, I waited for a year to raise capital because I knew the venture capital world would not understand the business. And we went from 0 to 10 million in our first year. And I was out and they would be like, well, I don't know if it's a real business. I'm like, it's a real business. And then, so for me, building a business is also convincing mostly men that this was going to be huge and it was going to be big and they should give me capital to raise it.
And you're only one of, 22 women who's ever taken a company public?
I think there's a couple more now. There's a couple more. Yes, so there's more. We might be at 25 now, but I was number 21 when I did it.
That's a good number to have.
It's a good number.
The 21 club.
Anyway, yes, ever. So if you look at the history of companies going public, women very seldom raise money. And then even then, the companies don't get across the finish line very often.
I'm sure there are lots of reasons for that. Why do you suppose that is?
I do think, though, that women understand businesses women start better than men. And when you're pitching a business, so you think of I was pitching a $10 million business to young men, and you have to really believe that it's going to be something big. And if they don't relate to the product, they don't want to go along for the ride. So having more female partners that understand what you're doing and what you're pitching made all the difference. The first person that actually wrote a big check was a female venture capitalist. And the second person was also a female venture capitalist. And then the third was a European male who understood what we were doing. So the traditional Valley did not understand.
I've never raised money. Well, no, I have raised money for the Statue of Liberty.
Okay.
How did you finance your first round of wrap dresses?
Well, in a sense, it was my manufacturer that would financing me because I would pay him after I got paid. Okay. And it became so big, fat. I mean, at first I used to come with little orders and he used to scream at me, I'm not a sample room, this is... And then, and a year later, we were making 25,000 dresses a week. It was one of those things. And, but my God, I've had such highs and lows. I'm just, like a pioneer who has visions and ideas and who know how to make it happen.
Well, I think the same issues are really stopping the fashion industry from getting ahead on sustainability because there are so many, the whole system is built for excess and waste.
When people ask me about sustainability, you go to any vintage store in the world and every store has a consistent DVF business. Consistent. And many, many dresses have already been 3 times in vintage stores. And they have had 3 lives. And they still look good. And they still don't have homes. And it's always the young people. And the price hasn't changed. 4 years ago, I had a big exhibition, The Journey of the Dress, just on the wrap dress in LACMA in LA. And then I thought, okay, now it's time, because I had 3 periods. I had American Dream, and then Comeback Kid, and I thought, now is Legacy. And I went the Legacy, I thought I went with, a man who had experience and who went by the old book. And my son said, this is all wrong. And I didn't listen to him. And it was all wrong. And all of a sudden, for the first time, I was losing money. And I was doing things that didn't make any sense. So, with the pandemic, I say, okay, now it's time to reset and go back to your core. Go back to your core. What is DVF? And DVF is the woman first. The woman first. And collectibles. And because I have a bank of colors and library of prints, and it's cyclical. Because women are cyclical, like seasons. Women have their period every month. There's a new moon every month. There's a full moon every month. There's seasons. It's almost like I have a startup again. a startup with a huge experience, with a huge this, with a huge story in the back, but I'm virgin now again for all these other products. So I can now do them the new way, which is you don't need big showrooms and salesmen and that and the waste and this and that. No. Just do what is right, what is focus on it, and so. So this is, in a sense, I also feel pathetic, because I can't believe I'm still doing that. I'm still teaching people how to make prints. But I guess that's my destiny. Everybody has their own destiny.
You know something about the ups and downs.
Yeah, I've had a few. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I mean, certainly, I'm number 21 and probably number 18 or 17 on taking companies public. So I've taken companies public twice. And then it was a public failure. And so I went from one of the only women doing this, but the difference is I didn't start that company. I was put in place to run it. And yes. And then I was also married, and then I wasn't married, and I had no company, and then I had to come back. Yes, I've had my ride. So it went like this, it went like this, it went like this.
So what for you has been the biggest difference between coming in to something that needed fixing or zhuzhing up or reimagining versus starting your own thing from scratch?
Everything. Everything is different, because the truth is when you inherit somebody else's company or you're taking it over, you don't have the same passion to figure it out, even though you're paid to figure it out. But there's something about starting your own company, especially when you know that you're right and you know it's going to work, and you just never give up. Never give up. And I would say the other thing is there is something, this is why I love women that start their own businesses. Once you do it and you do it, no one can take that away from you. And even if you fail, knowing that you took that risk and you did it and you believed in yourself is the best thing ever.
Right.
It's it. That's it.
I always say you have to listen. No, you have to hear everyone and listen to yourself. And because if you there's nothing worse than making a mistake because you listen to somebody else's advice. If you make a mistake, but it is your guts, it's fine. It's fine. It's completely different.
It's funny, but I was listening to, I think, an interview you did with Bloomberg, and you talked about the importance of owning something. And then your book, DVF, is Own It. So I'm curious if both of you talk about what does that mean to you, owning it?
Yeah, I wanted to be a woman in charge. And then when people say, who's your customer? The woman in charge. So in charge was always this umbrella over anything I did. But I never thought about it too much. And then I realized in charge could seem to be aggressive, but it's not. To be in charge is a commitment to ourselves, to own who we are. We own our imperfection, they become our asset. We own our vulnerability, we turn it into strengths. And that's why I decided to write it. So everything goes around Own It. First I wrote it as a prose, and instead now I wrote it as a little dictionary. And it was going to be frivolous, but because I wrote it during COVID, it's actually quite deep.
Julie, your book should be Consign It.
Oh, gosh. I think I probably have a different title if I ever write a book.
But I do want to hear when you say you need to have ownership of something, is that a similar feeling to what DVF has been talking about? Or
you have to own yourself. You have to own your process. You have to own what your decisions. And you have to own, who you are and where you've come from and actually, if you deny it, I have to say all bad things happen. The more you own yourself and your own ideas and your own mistakes, you can walk a path with your head held up. If you try to suppress something or make it go away, some bad thing will pop up in your life. It could be an addiction. It could be, huge conflicts. It's your conflict with yourself, and a conflict with yourself never ends well. It just doesn't end well.
And own it works for everybody. You're diagnosed with a disease. Your husband leaves you. You lose whatever. Okay, this is the reality. I got to own it. And the minute you say, I own it, then you're already dealing with it.
Yeah, because you're taking away its power over you.
Yeah, and it's like we were discussing before. This woman is pretty amazing, I have to say. And it's like you cannot complain, you cannot blame, you cannot resent. Those are things toxic, fear, toxic. No point. I mean, if you're afraid, if you throw the fear away, the circumstances are the same, but you deal with it in a different way.
Yep. Yes, completely, yes. So yes, I mean, I think you might have been born knowing that. It took me a while, but I'm so there. Although I told you, my father said my whole life, obviously he's known me his whole life. He said, I've never heard you complain about anything.
I've never complained either.
No.
I have never complained about the weather, about anything. No, because what's the waste? When you know what I mean? What's the point? It's true.
It is true.
I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer 26 years ago, and the nurse, she said, you have such a great attitude. I said, well, how do people deal with it? She said, well, there are two ways. They either say, why me? And they're angry.
Yes.
Or they completely surrender to the doctor. And that's not good either, because 50% is the doctor tells you what to do, but at least 50% is you. It's your body, it's your attitude, it's your spirit. So, I mean, the power that listen, having said that, and do you ever feel like a loser?
No, I would say what I've felt is I'm not sure how to get back on my feet, which is different than saying a loser.
No, but I mean, don't you ever feel, even now, like you wake up in the morning, you feel like a loser, no? I feel like a loser all the time.
No, I feel different things depending on the day. I never feel, I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize I'm that old. I would say it's almost like, I almost have this dark sense of humor about it. And I think that's because my mother was so ill when I was a child. I'm going to tell you, I've never told anyone this before, but the first time my mother was really ill and we thought she was dying, that all the neighbors were bringing all this food, because I grew up in India. They're all like food. And some of them really were bad cooks. I mean, they were really bad. So here I am, 9 years old. I set up a rating system for the neighbors' food. And I would be the one answering the phone, and I would look at how well I'm like, no, we're fine tonight, because their food was so bad. And it became like a family joke. And I'm like, no. So I had this whole grid that I drew out. So I do have a dark sense of humor about when things are even bad.
But it's not dark sense of humor. It's
a coping. It's a coping.
It's surviving.
It's surviving.
It's surviving.
Yeah.
Because you deal with what you deal. And but anyway, when I feel a little down on myself, I think something that Balzac, who is a French writer, said. And he say, when you doubt your power, you give power to your doubts. And that is really, really powerful.
I want to go back to this idea of this topic of age. I feel like youth is so valued in our culture and wisdom is so undervalued. And both of you, I think, are such incredible mentors, just by being who you are, whether you're actually one-on-one with anyone. And DVF, I know that you have said publicly that you just want to be an oracle now, which I love that just people come to you and just breathe in your wisdom and get your sage advice. And so, I just wanted to put that out there, talking about the wisdom and the confidence that comes with having lived a life. I think, what can we do, and what have you been doing philanthropically or through, mentorship programs or even within your own companies.
Instead of calling it aging, can we just call it living?
Yes,
right?
exactly.
I have lived so fully. I mean, I do more in a day, that I should be 150, right? I cannot take a week away from my life. We just had lunch. I cannot take that lunch away because we had such a wonderful conversation and it was so enriching. And I heard about this extraordinary woman, age is like when you're a small child, oh, you're 10 years old, oh, you're 12. And then all of a sudden you're afraid to say your age. It's stupid. If I wasn't superstitious, I think I would age myself. But I'm afraid to say that I'm older because I'm afraid I'm not going to get there, right? So I don't do that. But age is, yes, of course, physically it's unfortunate. So that's why I take a lot of pictures when you're young. You don't like the pictures today, 10 years from now you will love them. But live fully. This is what I wrote for age. Age is the map of life, made of memories, stored images, emotions, and experiences. Aging needs to be celebrated every month, every day, every year. Age is the proof of having lived. Living and loving our age is owning it.
I don't think there's much more to say. I'll never forget my grandmother, my dad's mom, said to me something when she turned, I don't remember, in her 80s. I said, how does it feel? She goes, consider the alternative.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, if you're not aging, you're dying.
Exactly.
So, at the end of the day, I would never go backwards. And I think youth is great, and you have different things in youth that you don't have, but I would never go backwards. And I would say, I'm blessed, and you have it too. We have a lot of energy, which helps because...
But sometimes I wake up and say, oh, and then the minute I have my feet on the ground, then you do things. But then you have also magic wand. We all have a magic wand. And the more we use our magic wand, the more powerful the magic wand is. And very often it comes back to you like a boomerang. So it's not just about building an ambition, and it's much, it's just paying attention to detail, paying attention to intimacy. We just had lunch. We could have had a very superficial, non-intimate conversation. She's a successful woman. Whatever. It could have been right there to the outside of it. Instead, I went right deep, which is what I do. But what I didn't expect is that how much information she would give me. So it's been great.
Yes.
I read that every morning you send 2 emails that don't benefit you, which I find is like micro disruption because you change the status quo for 2 people.
With email, you could do that. You can introduce one person to another person without having to leave a message, without having to speak, without having to do, and you absolutely change people's life. I try to make a miracle a day.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's awesome.
That's aspirational.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but you'd be surprised.
I know I wouldn't. I think you probably do. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
Well, I don't know, but and you feel so excited when you do it.
Yeah. How do you stay true to yourself when there are other potentially opposing voices in the room? But I also want to know about, what happens when you get people around you that only say yes to you, which I think is somehow more dangerous than people providing opposition?
Well, I don't know if you're talking about business or personal, but business, you just have to be objective. Like, here's what the goal, and here are the alternatives, and here are the risks, whatever path. And there isn't really, there's some answers more right than wrong, but at the end of the day, if you have a clear goal and the goal is the right goal, it's pretty easy for smart people to make the right decision. And then if you're wrong, you change. You have to own that you might have made the wrong decision so then you can make the right decision. You don't, like, it's not personal. Mm-hmm. But I would say I'm not at that, I'm not the person that does have a lot of people saying yes to me. I think both are pretty dangerous, to be honest. You don't want everyone like coming up trying to like have the alternate point of view, because then you don't move forward. You may be fighting battles that don't exist because someone's got their ego engaged instead of the objective engaged. And then if you only have yes people and you don't grow, and you see that all the time. Yeah. You see people around them, you meet them, they're walking infants because
they don't want to be challenged.
I would say their whole life, they've had a life where either money or position in their life or their own things they've created have put enough cushion around them that they've lost perspective. And I'm certainly not one of those people because, look, you guys all know when I started TheRealReal, I did every job. And then I got Rati to do every job with me. And I answered phone calls. I still I don't answer them, but I read customer service emails. And also having all of the employees I do, it keeps you humble. Because, we have a lot of work to do. And we're all learning new things. So, and for God's sake, I grew up in Indiana, so you can't really, to artists who actually, you don't really create an edifice. It's pretty hard to create an edifice if you grew up in Indiana. My summer jobs I riveted Monte Carlo rear bumpers to pay for college. You can't, so on the assembly line. So you don't really, and I was part of the union. So come on, there's it doesn't get more real than riveting bumpers. So,
wow. I had never, and all the things I've read of you, that has never come up, but.
Yes. Anyway, and the other thing is, the real success came later in life, which I think in a weird way is a blessing.
Mm-hmm. How do you keep it real, DVF?
I try really hard not to be delusional, and it's not easy, and my son says you're delusional. So I have a tendency to think that anyone can do anything if they're given the opportunity, and that is not true. How do I keep it real? I think reality keeps it real for me, and I believe in being a good person. I believe in paying attention to people, paying attention to little things. That makes you much richer. And also, I believe in, may sound corny, but I believe in being kind. And I believe in being thoughtful. And when you do good, you push the bad away.
There you go.
Well said. Reed?
That was a lot. Wow.
It was way deeper than I anticipated going, but...
See, you should have listened to our lunch.
I don't think she knows how to be anything else but that. That's how you stay authentic. You are that person.
I don't know. I'm not perfect for sure, but I've had a very colorful life. Yeah, I love colors.
Thank you, Julie and DVF. That was so amazing. And thank you all for joining us. Keep an eye out for the next episode of Real Talk.